All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have you here. So today we're diving into this article that caught my eye.
Yeah.
You sent it over to me, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. Um, it's about this proposal to send like 10,000 troops to the U.S.-Mexico border back in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
10,000.
that's a lot.
That's a huge number. And not only that, they were talking about using military bases to like temporarily house migrants.
Hmm.
So we gotta dig into this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty striking image right there.
Absolutely right.
Using military bases to house migrants. I mean, that's not something you hear every day.
No, not at all. And the fact that this was all happening, right before the midterm elections, like, yeah, it makes you wonder what was going on there.
Yeah, the timing is certainly interesting, isn't it?
It is very interesting. So, I got to ask, was this a common tactic back then? I mean, sending troops to the border? Right. So there is some historical precedent for sending troops to the border, but nothing quite on this scale.
Okay.
We've seen troops used to support border patrol, like with logistics surveillance, things like that. One example that comes to mind is Operation Gatekeepers back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That was focused on California, and it was really about deterring illegal crossings.
Right.
This proposal, though, this was different.
Okay.
Talking about using bases to actually house migrants that would have been completely unprecedented.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, when I think about military bases, I picture, barracks and training grounds. Like it's all very, geared towards military purposes
Yeah.
to suddenly transform them into these shelters for thousands of people, possibly families.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems like a logistical nightmare.
It would be a massive undertaking, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to think about converting existing buildings, maybe even setting up temporary housing.
Right.
Then you've got food medical care security, and all of this while trying to ensure the well-being of the migrants themselves.
Of course.
Not to mention the cost. I mean, we'd be talking astronomical figures.
It just makes you wonder what the thinking was behind this proposal. Like, were there not easier, less controversial ways to handle the situation?
Well, that's where the whole midterm election thing comes back into play.
Okay.
A lot of analysts saw this as a calculated move by the administration to kind of project strength on immigration,
Mm-hmm.
which was a big issue for their base. This is all happening right before voters headed to the polls.
So it's like a very visual, we're taking action kind of move aimed at a specific voter base.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I can see the logic there. But was there any pushback against this idea?
Oh, absolutely. Tons of pushback, especially from human rights groups. They were very vocal in their opposition.
Yeah.
Their argument was that using military bases this way would set a really dangerous precedent, blurring the lines between military installations and detention centers. There were concerns about overcrowding, lack of access to legal counsel, and the potential psychological impact, especially on families and children.
Right. Yeah, those are all incredibly valid concerns. It sounds like this whole situation was just fraught with our kinds of dilemmas.
It really was. It highlights how tough it can be for governments to balance border security with humanitarian concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about addressing the immediate situation either.
Right.
I mean, there are long-term implications to consider. What kind of message does this send to the world? How does it impact our relationships with neighboring countries?
That's exactly it. We can't just focus on the here and now. We've got to think about the ripple effects.
Right. And that's something I think is worth, our listeners really taking some time to ponder. Like, how do we as a society address these complex issues in a way that's both effective and humane?
It's a tough question, but a crucial one.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that needs to continue. So I hope, folks listening out there will, take some time to think about this. Just really grapple with these issues because there's no easy answers.
I agree. It's going to take a lot of thoughtful discussion and careful consideration to find solutions that work for everyone.
Well said. Well said. Thanks for joining me today for this deep dive.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Until next time.
See ya.
Take care.